At 3:47 a.m., the night sky over Russia's Bryansk Oblast erupts in orange hellfire. Flames climb 200 feet into the air. Millions of liters of fuel vaporized in an instant. And this is just the beginning. His isn't a random explosion. This isn't an accident. This is a calculated surgical strike deep inside Russian territory, and it's about to change the calculus of the entire war. Russia's oil infrastructure, the literal lifeblood of its war machines, under siege. Not from NATO, not from American bombers, but from drones. Small, relatively cheap, and devastatingly effective. Launched from over 600 kilometers away, these suicide UAVs are bypassing some of the most sophisticated air defenses on the planet. Moscow is scrambling. The Kremlin is silent. And across the border, Ukraine is proving that modern warfare isn't just fought on the front lines anymore. It's fought in the shadows. In the logistics, in the fuel depots that keep the T-90 tanks rolling and the Su-35 jets flying. But here's the real question. How did Ukraine pull this off? What does this mean for Russia's ability to sustain its war effort over the long haul? And most importantly, what happens next? Let's break it down. Step by step, hour by hour. Because what started as a single strike has now spiraled into one of the most devastating, asymmetric campaigns against Russian infrastructure since the invasion began. Before we dive into the chaos, you need to understand one fundamental truth. Oil is war. Russia's entire military operation depends on a constant, uninterrupted flow of fuel. A single tank can burn through 300 liters per 100 kilometers. A fighter jet consumes thousands of liters per sortie. Artillery units, supply convoys, armored divisions, they all require a massive, steady diet of hydrocarbons. Russia has massive reserves of it. Here's the catch. Oil in the ground is useless if you can refine it, store it, and transport it to the tip of the spear. That's where the depots come in. These aren't just storage tanks. They're strategic hubs. These massive facilities are spread across western Russia, each holding millions of liters of diesel, aviation fuel, and gasoline. They are the gas stations for the invasion, connected by rail, pipeline, and convoy routes that feed directly into the combat zones. Take them out, and you don't just blow up some barrels, you strangle the entire supply chain. You ground the helicopters. You strand the tanks. You force the enemy to make impossible choices. Do we fuel the offensive in the Donbass? Or do we keep the lights on at the regional headquarters? And that is exactly where Ukraine is hitting them. At 3:47 a.m., Bryansk Oblast, Russia, the first drone comes in low. No radar signature, no warning, just a faint lawnmower-like hum cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. It's a Ukrainian long-range UAV, likely a modified UJ-22 or a newer variant of the Beaver drone. Wingspan, 3 meters. Payload, 20 kilograms of high-explosive incendiary material. Range, over 1,000 kilometers. The target, the Bryansk fuel depot, one of the largest in western Russia. It supplies military units along the Kursk and Belgorod fronts. It's heavily guarded, or at least, it's supposed to be. At 3:47 a.m., the drone slams into Tank Reservoir 4. The explosion is instantaneous. A massive shockwave ripples outward. The tank ruptures, the diesel ignites, and within seconds, the fire spreads to adjacent reservoirs. 1, 2, 5. Within minutes, the entire depot is a roaring inferno. Russian emergency crews scramble to respond, but the heat is too intense. Temperatures exceed 1,000 degrees Celsius. Firefighters can't even get within 100 meters of the blaze. All they can do is watch it burn. By 4:15 a.m., the depot is a total loss. An estimated 3 million liters of fuel gone. But this wasn't a lone wolf strike. 7:22 a.m., Kursk Oblast, Russia 3 hours after the Bryansk explosion. Another depot lights up. This time, it's the Kursk logistics hub, a critical refueling point for Russian armored divisions pushing into Ukraine. It's northern defenses. 2 drones this time. Same tactic, same result, massive fires, complete destruction. 11:56 a.m., Rostov Oblast, Russia now. The focus shifts to southern Russia. The Rostov depot, one of the primary fuel sources for Russian forces in the Donbass, takes a direct hit, or storage tanks destroyed. The black smoke is visible from 50 kilometers away. By the end of day 1, Ukraine has struck 5 separate oil depots across 3 different regions. The damage is catastrophic. Estimates suggest over 15 million liters of fuel have been destroyed, enough to run an entire mechanized brigade for a month. But more important than the numbers is the psychological impact. Ukraine is showing the Russian public that nowhere is safe. The Kremlin is furious. Russian state media goes into overdrive, labeling the events as terrorist attacks and dangerous escalations. But behind the scenes, Moscow knows the truth. These aren't civilian targets. They are high-value military assets. Ukraine is hitting them with surgical precision. Russian air defense scrambles to adapt. Its 400 systems are repositioned from the front lines back into the interior. Panzer S-1 short-range systems are deployed around key depots. Electronic warfare EW units are brought in to jam drone signals. It doesn't work. Why? Because Ukraine isn't relying solely on traditional GPS navigation, which is ISIL jammed. These drones are operating on pre-programmed flight paths with terrain-following algorithms and optical matching. They fly often under 100 meters, using valleys, forests, and riverbeds to hide from radar. By the time Russian air defense detects them, the impact is only seconds away. Over the next 7 days, Ukraine launches 12 more strikes. Some hit, some are intercepted. But the cumulative damage is mounting. Here's the tally for week 1. Bryansk Oblast, 3 depots minus 8 million liters lost. Kursk Oblast, 2 depots to 5 million liters lost. Rostov Oblast, 1 depot. 4 million liters lost. Belgorod Oblast, 2 depots minus 6 million liters lost. Voronezh Oblast, 1 depot minus 3 million liters lost. Total fuel destroyed, over 26 million liters. That's not just a logistical headache. It's a strategic crisis. Russian military convoys are now being forced onto reduced fuel rations. Armored divisions are delaying offensive operations to conserve supplies. Helicopter sortie rates have dropped by an estimated 30%. Tank units are prioritizing static defensive positions over mobile operations, because they simply couldn't afford the gas to move. Oil depots aren't just military targets. They are the heart of the Russian economy, and the fires are starting to hurt where it counts. The Kremlin's wallet. Russia's economy is a petro-state at its core. Every barrel sold to international markets funds the war machine. But when depots burn, the entire supply chain backs up. Refineries have to slow down production because they have nowhere to store the finished product. By week 2, Russian oil output is down 4%. In a country already suffocating under international sanctions, every percentage point is a blow to the gut. The ruble weakens, inflation ticks up, and the Russian Ministry of Finance is quietly panicking. Let's talk tactics. Ukraine isn't just blowing things up for the sake of it. This is a 3-step masterclass in asymmetric warfare. 1. Disrupt logistics. By targeting fuel, you force the enemy to divert resources. Instead of pushing forward, Russian units are now pulling back to secure supply lines. 2. Degrade morale. Russian soldiers at the front see the smoke on the horizon. They realize that if Ukraine can hit a depot 500 miles away, their own supply truck doesn't stand a chance. 3. Force impossible choices. Every ruble spent rebuilding a depot is a ruble not spent on shells or body armor. Every S-400 system pulled back to guard. A refinery is one less system protecting the frontline troops from Ukrainian jets. By week 4, Russia has finally beefed up its interior air defenses. They've established new protocols and faster response times. So, Ukraine adapts. Enter the swarm. Instead of sending 1 or 2 drones, Ukraine begins launching coordinated waves. 10, 15, 20 drones, all programmed to converge on a single depot from different vectors simultaneously. Russian air defense might shoot down the first 6, but the 7th, 8th, and 9th get through. And that is all it takes to trigger a chain reaction. On day 26, a depot in Smolensk Oblast is hit by 9 drones. Despite heavy anti-aircraft fire, 3 break through. The facility burns for 48 hours. The message is clear. Ukraine has industrialized this campaign, and they are only getting better at it. 2 months in, the numbers are staggering. 34 oil depots struck. Over 60 million liters of fuel destroyed. Its estimated economic damage over $800 million. But the real impact is the friction. Russian commanders can no longer assume their rear is safe. Logistics officers are now forced to decentralize, hiding fuel in smaller, harder-to-detect locations. This makes refueling slower, more complicated, and far more prone to error. It weakens Russia's ability to mount the massive, sweeping armored offensives they are known for. Let's zoom out. This isn't just about oil. This is a proof of concept. Ukraine has turned relatively inexpensive commercial-grade technology into a strategic weapon. They've achieved deep strike capabilities without a massive air force or billion-dollar cruise missiles. Russia, meanwhile, is hemorrhaging resources trying to defend thousands of kilometers of vulnerable infrastructure. It is a mathematical nightmare for the Kremlin. They have more targets to protect than they have systems to protect them. So what happens next? Does Russia escalate further? Do they pull even more air defenses from the front lines, leaving their troops exposed to Ukrainian drones and missiles? Or does Ukraine expand the target list to include power plants, command centers, and rail bridges? And here's the wild card. What if this becomes the blueprint for every future conflict? Ukraine has proven that in the 21st century, you don't need the biggest military to win. You just need to be smarter, faster, and more relentless than the giant you're fighting. The fires are still burning. The drones are still flying. This campaign is far from over. Russia's logistics are in chaos, and Ukraine is showing the world that the rear is the new front line. So what do you think? Can Russia eventually adapt and close its skies? Or has Ukraine found the Achilles heel of the Russian war machine? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more deep dives into the tech and tactics of this war, hit that subscribe button. Because this story is still being written, one explosion at a time.